Hello everyone, and welcome to WAIFU, where we analyze interesting Fire Emblem units. In this series, I take a close look at units that I feel are being overrated or underrated by the Fire Emblem community. If you've got any characters you'd like me to take a look at, then post them down below, and while you're there, don't forget to recruit the like button by turning it blue. Today, we are taking a look at one of the most polarizing characters from Fire Emblem Three Houses, Bernadetta. I said look at, not murder, although there is going to be a lot of murder in this video because while my opinion on Bernadetta as a combat unit used to be very low, it turns out that there are some really overlooked aspects to her skill set that make her much better than most people think. So if you are someone who writes off Bernadetta as a weak archer with a shaky 35% growth in strength, just like I used to, then you might want to keep watching because with the right setup she is a monster. Even before Three Houses came out, Bernadetta drew a lot of fan reaction. You had a lot of people who really liked her because they could relate to her awkwardness and fear of social interaction, and then you also had people who were afraid that she was going to be another one-note stereotype character that we got so many of in Awakening and Fates. Back then there was a lot of Fates hate and a lot of Three Houses hype, so I made a bit of a shit post to poke fun at this phenomenon. Bernadetta represented what I feared the most at the time, that Three Houses would be filled with tropey, shallow characters. When the game came out, my house of choice was the Golden Deer, but I still got my fair share of exposure to Bernadetta through co-hosting a Black Eagles Let's Play on Mags' channel. And oh boy, it looked like Bernadetta was almost everything I was afraid she would be. Just about every Bernadetta support had about the same formula. One character does a relatively normal thing, and then Bernadetta reacts by screaming a lot. Suffice it to say, my second impression of Bernie wasn't much better than my first one. When I finally got around to playing Black Eagles myself, I played it on maddening mode and I actually benched her. As a result, until I had to collect footage for this video, I've actually never used Bernadetta before. Now before we get into Bernadetta's secret weapons, we're going to take a look at what she brings to the table when used normally. Bernadetta is part of the Black Eagle house, and just like most other students, she joins as a level 1 noble. None of her base stats stand out in any way, good or bad, and player customization plays a huge part in what kind of a unit she turns into. When it comes to her growth, the thing people notice about her the most is her 35% strength growth, which is right at that point where people consider it shaky or mediocre. And then for some reason, once a character has 40 or 45, a lot of players consider stat growth acceptable, whereas anything below seems to get dismissed. I don't know why that is where the line is, but that is what most people seem to feel. Speaking of people often claim that I say that growths don't matter, which I have never said unironically. What I do think is that small differences in growth don't matter, and also that growths get overhyped in importance a lot compared to other factors. Bernadetta is a great example of a character whose strengths you can't just judge through growths, or bases for that matter, and also a reason why Three Houses characters are so hard to analyze and compare. I will note that her speed growth of 50% is pretty good, though depending on the difficulty you're playing on, doubling reliably in Three Houses is pretty difficult. Generally speaking, unless you have Darting Blow or you're an absolute speed demon like Petra, doubling reliably doesn't happen a whole lot on Manding, but as you're gonna see, Bernie really doesn't need to. For other interesting traits, Bernadetta has a minor crest of Indec, which functions kind of like the Adept skill in older games in that it gives her a 10% chance to strike again. This is obviously not something you can rely on helping you, but very occasionally it will bail you out. It's a nice bonus, but not nearly as nice as Bernadetta's personal skill, Persecution Complex. Whenever Bernadetta is below max HP, she will deal 5 extra damage. This is one of the best personal skills in the game, and it might just be the best. Most personal skills have unreliable activation rates, rely on certain types of allies to be adjacent, or give bonuses that are just flat out not worth it. Persecution Complex has none of these problems. It is very easy to activate by just putting Bernadetta in range of an enemy, and no one else needs to be adjacent, and the flat bonus of 5 damage is enormous. If we are to add that 5 to her base strength of 8, she effectively has the same damage output as Edelgard and Byleth, and they have way more strength than any other student. Of course, this bonus only applies if Bernadetta is damaged, and considering her fairly low HP and defense, that usually means any stray attack will kill her and she will need to be protected. Admittedly, this puts a bit of a strain on your other characters, though I think it's worth noting that on Manding mode, you're likely already forced to hide most of your characters behind your Lord and Byleth in the early game, so it doesn't have that much of a negative impact on your strategy to begin with. What makes it easier for Bernadetta to hide, which is very in character, is her proficiency in bows. She joins with a D rank, which gives her access to the curved shot combat art. With this, she can shoot from 3 tiles away, so she will almost always be able to get an attack in, and even enemy magic users won't be able to counter her. I find that in Three Houses early game, especially on Manding mode, things can get very cramped at times, and characters end up getting in each other's way a lot, but almost no matter the formation, someone like Bernadetta is almost always able to get a pot shot in. This is a really nice asset that people really don't talk about very much. If you looked closely at some of the footage I've been showing, you might have noticed that I didn't go with the Black Eagles to showcase Bernadetta. What I actually did was I went with the Blue Lions, and I convinced Bernadetta to switch classes as early as Chapter 5. This made her stats slightly better than they otherwise would be due to the way that students auto-level, but her weapon levels are roughly the same as you would expect them to be if you set her goals to training lances and axes from the start of the Black Eagles campaign, and then focus her instructions on lances. Another recruited fighter, Bernadetta, will funnily enough have a D in brawling despite her bane, but for the purposes of this video that is irrelevant. For the secret ingredient to Bernie's success, we need to look at her learned combat arts. Most characters will pick up about the same abilities in combat arts as they gain weapon proficiency, but Bernie gains something really special at C+ lances: Vengeance. This art is exclusive to her, the Do and Cyril, and up until recently I haven't seen it get a whole lot of attention. Vengeance has a low 2 base might, but it scales up as the user has missing HP. For every point of damage, Vengeance adds 1 extra might, so if Bernadetta is at 20 below her max HP, this combat art has a massive 22 base might before considering Bernadetta's strength, personal skill, or weapon might. This gives her massive attacking power, able to one-hit KO even bosses when at low HP. On my first and only attempt to use Bernie, I was able to get her to learn Vengeance before the Chapter 6 mission, although if you play Black Eagles you should be able to obtain it before Chapter 4. I was astonished at her damage output with Vengeance. She didn't even need to be reduced to 1 HP to be able to one-hit kill every single enemy. I even forged a Steel Lance Plus to maximize her damage output, but that was unnecessary too. Going by raw damage output, this is by far the strongest character you have access to at this point in the game, surpassing even powerhouses like Byleth, Catherine, and the Lords. Nothing deletes a single enemy faster than Vengeance Bernadetta. I was even able to one-hit KO the Death Knight with this combo. Of course, Vengeance is not without risk, as she will often spend time on low HP. If Bernadetta somehow fails to kill an enemy that can counter her through something like a miss or a skill activation, she will certainly die. And it goes without saying that you cannot use her on enemy phase either unless you heal her beforehand, which you absolutely can do if needed. There's no one saying you have to keep her at low health at all times. Some people seem to think of Vengeance Bernadetta as just a meme or something that people who just want their waifu to be good use to defend her, but as someone who really didn't like Bernadetta before making this video, I can tell you that Vengeance is far more than that. The way Maddening mode tends to work in my experience, at least in part 1, is that you use almost your entire army to fight small groups of enemies at a time. You spend turns baiting them in slowly, and then you try to kill them all in one turn to avoid anyone dying. The Vengeance strategy synergizes perfectly with this method. She kills enemies faster than anyone else on player phase, and if you're already killing every enemy in the group anyway, then Bernie isn't really being a burden on your other units. If the enemy density is too high to eliminate all of the opposition at once though, Bernadetta can go back to chip duty, and her chip damage is still pretty good thanks to her personal skill. At this point, mine have +4 attack from a battalion, +2 from mastering the fighter class, and a single Rocky Burdock, so perhaps she has a bit more than average, but still, the damage she's providing is still very significant and lets just about anyone follow up with a kill. Now that we have Bernie's basic damage dealing wombo combo installed, we need to figure out her class path. Archer is her most accessible intermediate class considering her affinity for bows. She only needs D+ to be able to take the exam, and with C-bow she'll have a 100% chance to pass it. Archer is a good class for her to be in since it gives her access to 3 range attacks without using curved shot, and she can even do 4 range with it. And should she master it, you will get the hit +20 skill, which will prevent those nasty misses with Vengeance, and it will make the accuracy drop from long range attacking much more tolerable. If you recruit Bernie with the D in Axis like I did, or set it as a goal from the start alongside Lances in Black Eagles, it's not too hard to get her to D+, and gain access to the Brigand class despite her Axe Bane. Mastering Brigand will teach Bernadetta Death Blow, which will give her another +6 attack on top of all the power she's already packing. If you want your Bernie to be as strong as she could possibly be, this is a must-have. It might take some auxiliary battles to master Archer and Brigand, but almost all units tend to want to master at least 2 intermediate classes anyway, since the skills they give are too good, so I don't think this really counts against her any more than it counts against other units. When instructing Bernie, I recommend you don't bother with Axis, just set it as her goal and leave it at that. Use your instructions to teach her Vengeance, and once she's learned that, focus on other prospects. One of those prospects is getting her Authority from E to D to gain access to better battalions, and the other is making use of that budding talent in riding. Bernadetta is normally rather neutral towards horses, but if you instruct her in riding 12 times, it will become a boon of hers, and she will learn the pass skill. The plan is to turn Bernie into a Cavalier, then Paladin, and then eventually Bow Knight, so getting a lot of riding rank on her is helpful. Note that Bow Knight is optional. It provides Bernadetta with bow range +2 and bow fair, which is good, but Paladin gives her lance fair an extra point of strength. So there might be times where you want to switch back and forth between the two, depending on which part of Bernie's kit you plan to make more use of. As a mounted unit, Bernie can do hit and runs, either taking one shot with Vengeance or using long-range bow attacks, whatever it takes for her to be safe. Thanks to Canto and Pass, she can be almost as flexible as a flyer when it comes to hit and runs, though I will admit there are maps where it can be hard to keep her safe. When the game doesn't give you full information, such as when it employs ambush spawns or fog of war, you can unexpectedly find yourself with a dead Bernadetta even though you really weren't trying to murder her. I will emphasize again that Bernie does not necessarily have to be at death's door to deal significant damage. Her personal skill alone gives her some really good firepower, and even at like half health, Vengeance is a ridiculously powerful combat art. But if you want her to kill demonic beasts and bosses in one hit, which she can do, you're best off pairing her with a guard adjutant. This will let Bernie survive any round of combat as long as she's not straight up dying in one hit, so even if she gets double attacked for way more damage than she could possibly handle, the guard adjutant will ensure that she survives. You can also use the Blessing Gambit on her, which lets her survive one lethal attack as long as her HP is at 1 or higher. Bernie also learns Deadeye, which can be a situationally useful combat art that lets her attack from very, very far away. Of course, the further away you are from your target, the more her hit rate drops, but with the hit plus 20 skill, she can still get surprisingly good accuracy with it at times. And believe it or not, Deadeye is not even in the top 3 of the best combat arts that Bernadetta learns. Once she hits a bows, she gets Encloser, which stops enemies you hit with it from moving around, kind of like when you use a gambit on them. Encloser is good in situations where Vengeance is not, such as when Bernie is at full HP, or when you cannot kill all the enemies in your range but there's still one you want to immobilize. And with Encloser, Bernie can stun enemies without having to resort to a gambit, which have limited uses per map. You can also choose to assign Bernie a battalion with a boosting gambit instead, such as Stride or Retribution. Mounted units with Canto like Bernie are great for those, since they can be cast on your starting formation without the user instantly falling behind the rest afterwards, and they cannot be assigned to flyers since their battalion choices are very limited. Speaking of flyers, if you want, you can make Bernie even more flexible through actually making her a flyer. She certainly has the Lance rank to qualify for Pegasus Knight and eventually Falcon Knight, though you would also have to raise her sword rank up a bit. Or if you trained her Axe rank to qualify for Brigand, it's not difficult to make her into a Wyvern Rider class. Flying increases the options that Bernie has when moving around on the battlefield, though it also restricts her in a way. Like I said earlier, flyers have fewer options for battalions, and they also cannot get guard adjutants. Personally, I went with the Bow Knight route instead, but it's not the only path you can take. You can also choose to make her a Sniper, which is a class that works for just about any unit. Hunter's Volley's guaranteed double attack does work well with Persecution Complex, but I think it's a bit of a waste of Bernadetta's unique talents like Pass and Vengeance. So now that you know about Bernie's various class options, let me finish painting the picture of how she does throughout the game. I think she's at her most useful between chapters 4 and 12 or so, where she can fulfill her function as either a chip damage dealer with bows or a cleaner and boss killer with Vengeance and Lances. Sometimes she can get one-hit KOs with a simple training lance, but occasionally she might have to bust out a relic like the Lance of Ruin or the Luin. I did find that in part 2, enemy density at times got a bit too high for Bernie to contribute a whole lot without putting her at risk. You need to be very aware of enemy ranges, and in the case of maddening mode, ambush spawns in order for her to stay safe, as one mistake with her positioning can be the end of her. Late part 1, and for most of part 2, there is an increase in the use of enemies with long range, like ballistas and siege tomes, both of which cause huge areas where Bernadetta simply cannot be permitted to go. That doesn't mean you can't put her to use at all, but you have to be a little bit more careful. She does have Canto and Pass so that she can hop in and out of enemy ranges as you please. If you're not looking to play part 2 maps normally, but would rather beat them as soon as possible, this is definitely something Bernadetta can help you with. A lot of the maps in 3 houses have a single boss kill as their main objective, and Bernie is one of the best characters at doing that thanks to Vengeance. Between Stride, your Dancer, the Dance of the Goddess Gambit, and the Warp Spell, there are a lot of ways to have Bernie move across the map within a single turn, and have her kill a boss with Vengeance. If this is what you're aiming to do, then a flyer build for Bernadetta might be preferable, though I still managed to do it using Bow Knight Bernie, partially because Pass allows her to move straight through enemies without having to kill them first. She's definitely not required for these boss kills, but this is just to show that she's not without merits in a faster playstyle. In fact, I'd say it plays to her strengths, because you never have to worry about what happens on enemy phase if you end the map before it happens. If you are not satisfied with the idea of Bernadetta as just a fragile player phase nuke, there is another unique build that you can use that will turn her into an enemy phase killing machine instead, the Vantage Battalion Wrath setup. This isn't the easiest thing ever since Swords is a bane of Bernadetta's, but she only needs to have D+ rank to have a 66% chance to qualify. From there, all she needs is a C rank in Authority so that she learns Battalion Wrath, and then everything else kind of comes naturally, as you train Bernadetta through the class path already mentioned. She should be equipped with Bow Crit +10, Vantage, hit plus 20, battalion wrath, and bow prowess level 5. You will also need a battalion that gives her some crit rate that you don't mind getting to low durability to activate battalion wrath. I chose the King of Lion Corps, which is only C rank and gives plus 15 crit, but you can also use the Fraldarius soldiers or the Goneril Valkyries. You also need to reduce Bernadetta's own HP to 50% or lower to activate Vantage, but I'm sure at this point in the video, if there's one thing you know how to do, it's getting her to low HP. Make sure she's equipped with a couple of forged killer bows, and then the final ingredient is to cast Retribution on her to make sure she can counterattack one-range enemies, though you could also opt to give her the close counter skill in favor of one of the other skills if you so please. The result is hilarious. With this setup, Bernie should end up with 100 hit and crit against just about every enemy you fight, and she will go first even on enemy phase thanks to Vantage. So before the enemy even gets to her, she will shoot them with a critical hit. Under the right circumstances, she can wipe out entire armies within one turn. This build is not without its drawbacks though. It requires a fairly deliberate setup, particularly the mercenary certification and mastery, and certain enemies can circumvent it through offensive gambits, ballistas, or simply too much durability for Bernadetta to one-shot, but hey, it's fun. And while Bernie is far from the only character capable of putting some kind of Vantage Wrath combination, she's one of the few who still has good player phase offense through Vengeance. If you want to take full advantage of that, I recommend you substitute Bow Prowess and Bow Critical for their lance variations and use Paladin instead of Bow Knight to maximize your damage output and hit rate. I simply used the bow version in the footage because it was easier for me to set up. So let's wrap this up. Bernie is easily the unit I've changed my opinion on the most ever since the launch of Three Houses. The raw power of Vengeance and Persecution Complex is basically unmatched throughout the game, and it is a stark contrast to the low damage output people usually think of when they look at Bernie's low strength. At this point, I really need to give a shout out to Rengor for pointing out just how good she is and how to optimize her weapon ranks and classes. I think he put it the best when he said that Bernadetta encapsulates what makes Fire Emblem fun. A really weird unit that just works really well. She works well enough on hard mode, but maddening is where she really shines. That doesn't mean she doesn't have her weaknesses though. Even at full HP, she is likely to get one-rounded on maddening, and you really need to pay attention to your positioning to ensure she doesn't die. This isn't much of a strain in the early game, but it can be harder to do in later parts. I don't think Bernie is an S tier unit by any means, but she is definitely far better than a lot of people give her credit for. And I have to say, even Bernie's character has kind of grown on me as I played through the game to test her out and get her background footage. I had her kill a lot of things, and every time she said something like, "Can I go now?" it was just like really funny to me. I know she's supposed to be a character you feel bad for, but I just can't help it. I still think her supports are a bit annoying, but her being so fun to use made her a lot more likable to me. So, I can't believe I'm saying this, but get out there and use Bernadetta, preferably on maddening mode. It is hilarious to see enemies die this easily. If you're someone who loves overkill damage and doesn't mind providing the protection she needs, you will love using her. And that is going to be it for this episode of Waifu. Besides Rengor, I have a couple more people to thank. First of all, I'd like to thank CyanYoh for editing this massive episode for me. I'd like to thank Rin for the thumbnail, and of course I want to thank my Patreons for supporting me. I only launched my Patreon recently, but I've already had a ton of help from generous people. Thank you all so much, especially my S tier Patreons Aqua Clash, Command List, Hunty Wunty, Ice Lake, Moo, Nikhil, Pete Ladias, Scott Mitchell, Skyler, Stuart Graves, Swordlocked, and Tony. If you would like to support me in making these videos, the link to my Patreon can be found in the description. Again, if there is another Fire Emblem character from Three Houses or any other game that you'd like me to take a look at, post them down below. And while you're there, press the like button to build some support points. And subscribe to see more content like this. And if someone tells you that they don't like Bernadetta because she's weak, tell them they're wrong and use this video as proof. That's all for today. I will see you next time. Peace and bye bye.